I tested 5 weird B2B marketing channels over 6 months, and now I'm reporting back on how much time and money I spent and the revenue generated. And why not join thousands of legends enjoying my weekday newsletter for unusual B2B marketing and SEO tips, as well as fresh podcast updates? Head over to breakingb2b.com and hit the newsletter tab. All right, let's dive into it. So for some context, I set up breakingb2b.com. We help B2B service and B2B tech and SaaS companies with SEO and websites for revenue, not vanity. So we started the business 6 months ago, back in February, and at the time of recording now, we're August 2024. And I wanted to test out a bunch of different channels to see what kind of results we could get for them. The channels we tested were cold email, cold calling, guesting on niche relevant podcasts, and I also tested a cold outreach agency. And I'm going to dive into exactly how much we spent in terms of time, cash, and monthly recurring revenue MRR generated off the back of it. So let's dive into the 6 months worth of experiments. We've just collated the results. So the first channel we tested was cold email. What was the offer? Well, in our case, as we're selling B2B SEO mainly, we wanted to target SaaS organizations, ideally ones that have had a bit of funding, target their marketing leaders like demand generation directors, heads of marketing, marketing directors, growth directors, and similar. I didn't have a lot of experience with cold email, so I actually found someone on Upwork that was an expert, paid them $600. They advised me to take out an Apollo subscription, which is essentially an email sending system and much more. That was $99 a month. An email warm-up tool to basically make sure that your emails stay warm and active and to help them not going to spam was $46 per month. 2 domains, so 2 Google Suite domains was $30 a month, and a SendGrid, a tool that helps with sending the emails, $107 a month. What was the offer? Well, yeah, we targeted tech, software, SaaS marketing leaders, went for something painfully short. So if you're watching on the video, we had a subject line. We did a small sequence. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 emails sent over 13 days. The initial email, very short, had a subject line of pipeline, all in lowercase, to try and pique curiosity and get that email open when those execs see that. And it was very straightforward. It was first name, so it could be Steve or Sally. And it says, most marketing leaders tell me pipeline is down. I crafted a video with a different idea to scale organic traffic and qualified leads. Are you against taking a peek? And then PS, 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗁, a B2B SaaS, saw a 37% uptick in demos working with us for organic search. And then I just signed it off, Sam Dunning, founder at Breaking B2B. So no links in that first email, and try to keep it super short, painfully short almost, to try and get folks curious. Just a very simple email subject of pipeline, all lowercase. So they might even think it's an internal email, encourage them to open it. And then a very clean, simple offer, offering basically a Loom video review of their website with some SEO recommendations. So that was that. And then there was a couple follow-up emails in the sequence where I just share them my guide, my B2B SEO guide, ungated. And then I also link them a couple relevant podcast episodes and videos. And then towards the end, ask for if they do want the video or if they want to organize a meeting or not. So we started that back in February, so not long after I started the company. And the actual results, or time spent rather, first and foremost, we know the expenses. We just went through that. Time spent was 1 hour per week to actually build the sequences, schedule them to send on certain times on each day, and check the 2 email inboxes for any replies. And then the time to actually craft to the positive responses, so that to the marketing folks that we were targeting that replied saying they would like a video review, about 15 minutes to review their website, check out the stats on tools like Ahrefs, and then craft them a custom video with some recommendations, ideas around what we could do to improve their SEO, some unusual approaches, and then asking if they'd like to meet to discuss further. So results off that, we got 6 booked calls. So quite low considering the amount of emails that we sent, which was several thousand. As we warmed up, it got to about 200 per day we were sending. There's 6 booked calls, 2 deals ongoing in the pipeline, and 1 closed deal for 6.7K, so $6,700,000 per month. And that was won back in July of 2024. And what's the plan? Well, I'm going to keep it rolling. We're only 6 months into this, so try it for another 6 months because the overheads of the cold email were pretty low and it doesn't take that much time. I'm going to keep it going to see how we do after 12 months at the end of the year, as we want a deal that's easily paid for that with that 6.7K deal. So that was channel 1. Channel 2 is cold calling, which again, I started when I started Breaking B2B, February. Why did I do it? Well, I've actually released a podcast episode and a video episode. So if you search the ultimate cold calling guide for dummies, or if you're not watching and you're listening, search the ultimate cold calling guide for dummies, Breaking B2B, and you'll be able to find that podcast episode or the YouTube episode. And this is I think it's about a 22-minute video breakdown where you can get all the insider tips. But long story short, cold calling, the reason I did it is I found myself messing around on LinkedIn for an hour or so most mornings and thinking I could probably spend this time a bit better. Instead of just scrolling through the feed, I could try out calling, in our case, tech marketing leaders, lead with the problem we fix, see if that problem resonates. If those folks are motivated to fix that problem, in our case, competitors heading above you in organic search results, stealing traffic, inbound leads, and mind share. So that was kind of the pitch that we did. We basically do a very straightforward pitch when folks would answer. So marketing leaders would answer the phone. I'd say, "Hey, Steve," or "Hey, Janice." I'll be very upfront. This is a sales call. Not sure if you want to slam the phone now or let me have 30 seconds to share why. I'd lead with the problems we fix around SEO and websites, and then get into it, start a conversation or not, and see if they're motivated to fix the problem, if it's a problem they really want to solve, and if it's actually worth us meeting to discuss it further or not. So that was a broad overview of the offer. If you want to know the expenses, we spent $30 a month on the power dialing systems, the tool to actually connect you at speed to a data list. So you don't have to manually dial, but that tool does it for you. And then about $2,000 for data. So opted in mobile or cell numbers of those folks we wanted to contact. What are the results? So we got 20 booked calls, 2 of which are still ongoing deals. We won a one-time project, so not a monthly project, one-off project of 4.7K, so $4,700 back in March 2024. And we also won a 5.9K monthly reoccurring SEO plan in April. So 1 monthly recurring deal, 1 and 1 one-time project. What was the time spent? Anywhere between 1 to 2 hours, a couple of days a week. So didn't always have time to do it. If I had a morning free, I'd schedule 1 hour or so to do some dials. And then the odd evening, I'd collect the data together. So I had it ready so I could just go ahead and call. A bonus though, as well as those meetings and those deals won, the folks that perhaps said the timing was off or that weren't interested, I added to my newsletter. So my daily newsletter, which is at breaking-b2b.com, and hit that newsletter tab. A bunch of those folks, I basically said, sounds like timing's off, but I actually have marketing leaders like yourself where I send a few emails a week with unusual B2B marketing ideas, SEO tips, and podcasts that you might like. And a lot of those said yes. So I got a bunch of those I can nurture over time with the email list. And what's the plan of next steps? Well, from the data, it looks like cold calling might not be the best use of my time, but I'll probably carry it on for three or so more months and see how we do based upon what meetings and, most importantly, cash in the bank revenue gets driven. Number 3, guesting on podcasts. So essentially, I used a tool called Listen Notes. The website is listennotes.com. Really good because you can quite literally type in your niche. So in my case, B2B marketing, but yours might be accounting, it might be finance, it might be something else. So in our case, I go onto listennotes.com. I type in my niche, B2B marketing or Saas marketing. And then if you're watching on video, you'll see me trawling through the site. I can literally filter the listings by the top B2B marketing podcasts, but you could do this for your niche, whatever you've searched. You can actually see Breaking B2B up there. But the good thing about this is it also lists the podcast name, their host. If they're still active, you can click into each one and you can see if they're a top rated show. So I tend to go for top 10% or top 5%, similar if I can. And then what I'll do is I'll just make sure they're active, make sure the podcast has had some episodes recently, and then I'll find out who the host is. I will send them a personalized connection on LinkedIn, something painfully short in the personalized connect request, something like, "Hey, Steve," or "Hey, Sally, great work on the podcast or had an unusual idea for your podcast. Are you against a conversation? ? Something that's very simple, painfully short, opens up that curiosity gap. Most of those will accept, probably about 90% or so accept that. And they usually respond like, what the hell are you talking about, Sam? And to which, once they accept, I'll send them a customized Loom video. And usually I'll start the Loom video on their LinkedIn page. So it's kind of builds familiarity. And then I'll go across to probably their podcast website or their own website. And I'll basically say, look, appreciate the work you've done on the podcast. Enjoyed this on your recent episode. Pull out a nugget from that. And I'll say, look, I'm usually invited on shows like yours to talk about X or talk about Y, in my case, unusual SEO ideas to drive revenue and avoid vanity metrics, or websites that actually resonate and convert dream clients. And I'll basically say, are you up for having me on? I'll share some examples of podcasts I've been on quickly and do a really short and concise 2-minute Loom video, which I'll send to their DMs in LinkedIn. And that gets probably about a third of the ones I do, I get accepted onto shows. And if we go back to my breakdown sheet, if you're watching on video, so with guesting on podcasts, that's basically my strategy. Go on to listennotes.com, search for my niche, search for shows that are kind of fairly popular, pitch their guests on LinkedIn with a customized Loom video. Expenses for my podcast setup was $3,000 to $4,000, but yours could be much less. I mean, I'm using a DSLR, I'm using a Shure professional mic. I've got decent lights, but I've slowly upgraded this. You could start with a simple Logitech webcam and a simple mic, which could be a couple $100. So it shouldn't cost you too much. So really, it's only my time. So to do this, maybe 1 to 2 hours a week to find podcasts and pitch them with a custom video approach, and then maybe 40 minutes to 1 hour for each episode that we record. I try to do 1 to 2 guest episodes per week at the moment. What are the results? Well, most importantly, I've guested probably on 25, 30 podcasts over the last 6 months, 5 meetings off the back of it, 5 book calls through our website, breakingb2b.com, 2 deals won, one $7,000 a month deal, which was won in May, and one $6,000 a month SEO deal, which was won this month in August 24. But as well as that, so as well as what have you got there, 13K monthly recurring revenue from those 2 deals, for when folks spend a lot of time, if they're listening to you on a podcast or on a YouTube show, their time's almost dedicated. So they're really kind of listening, sinking in, consuming that information. They're not scrolling the feed like on LinkedIn or anything else. They're quite tuned in. So not just the fact that this can get you booked calls, but more you can gain things like followers on LinkedIn, if that's relevant to you. People might follow your podcast if you've got one. They might check out a lead magnet if you call that action in the show. They might subscribe to you somewhere else or check out your newsletter. So it's a good way to not just get calls, but build up your audience and your niche, build up trust, and also nurture prospects and just play that long-term game where you're building trust in your niche and your industry. So that's one of the reasons I'll do it. And my plan based on that data is that I'm going to keep doing it, 1 to 2 guest podcasts, not just for the book calls, as it's nice to get the revenue off the back of that, but also to build up authority in the niche, which in my case is SEO and websites for B2B tech and service companies. But yeah, highly recommend that if that's an approach that you can do, or maybe your execs can do, or your founder maybe can take that approach. If you're a marketing leader at a company, maybe you can encourage your founder to get stuck into guesting on niche podcasts and check out listennotes.com. And the fourth one was a cold email agency. So I wanted to test out a team to see if a professional team could do some kind of managed cold email and some outreach for us. We started that back in June. We're now at the end. It was a 3-month trial. How much did I pay? Well, we actually did a trade swap. So I did a 3.5K USD SEO plan, which we've been delivering for them for the 3 months. And they've been doing our cold email outreach. Basically a trade swap. So results, we got 6 meetings so far. It finishes end of this month. There is one SEO deal. So we've got 1 deal left in the pipeline, but no wins yet. But it was a trial. It was one of those things where I went into it thinking, we'll try this agency out, see how it goes. If not great after 3 months, we'll axe it. If it is good, we'll keep it going. But it looks like we're going to axe that as the results went where we're at. So based on those 4 channels, the total return has been 25.6K, so 25,600 USD monthly recurring revenue, MRR, plus a one-time 4.7K project on top. What were my costs? Well, $312 a month on the software and tools, but that does exclude the agency swap that we did on point 4 for for the 3-month cold trial, and also about $2,000 spent for data for cold calls. Time invested, roughly 10 to 12 hours per week from my side. So not a bad return. I'm fairly happy with those experiments. So 25.6K, pretty decent for 6 months. I'm fairly happy with that. But what I should add, so these were all experiments. Getting on to the 5th and final segment of this episode. These are experiments on top of the usual channels we use. So these experiments, I basically went in with a hypothesis that I think these might work for where my target clients hang out. I think if we build kind of authority in the space, or lead with the problems we fix, the impact of not fixing it, and how we resolve them. And obviously with those plans based on data against each one is where we're going to go. But yeah, these are not the only channels we run. SEO is one of our main channels. So we rank well on Google for terms like B2B SEO agency and Saas SEO agency. That drives us inbound calls. LinkedIn is a big one for us. So if you're watching on video, I post all kinds of stuff once to twice each day. I've got built up a network of around 30K followers. So I do things like how-tos, breakdowns of how we've ranked companies on Google. I do funny memes. I do videos. And one of my latest experiments within LinkedIn itself is I've done a Ask the Public series. So I actually go up to towns and cities nearby, and I'll ask folks on the street random questions around B2B marketing, like, do you know what SEO is? What makes a great website? What makes a terrible website? All these questions to get funny reactions. But the thing is, probably 1 in 10 people know what SEO is or know what this stuff is, and you get some really sensible answers, and the other folks kind of get some quite funny stuff. So that was a series that's hit fairly well. But we do a lot of that kind of stuff on LinkedIn. I do a bunch of entertaining, try to be funny, and some educational content, and that gets me probably anywhere between 2 to 3 to 4 qualified book calls per month through LinkedIn. And as well as that, of course, this Breaking B2B podcast on YouTube and on Apple, Spotify, and elsewhere. And we run the weekday newsletter over at breakingb2b.com, again, to nurture prospects, stay top of mind, entertaining content. So when folks need B2B SEO websites, we try to stay top of mind. And there we have it, a bit of a different episode where I share what we've been up to in the last 6 months of Breaking B2B, testing some unusual and stranger B2B marketing channels along with the results. Oh, and if you haven't yet, why not join thousands of legends enjoying the weekday newsletter for more SEO and unusual B2B marketing tips, as well as podcast updates? Head over to breakingb2b.com and hit that newsletter tab. And with that, I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.